Welcome back to the Continental, everybody. Today we're here with the Springfield M1A review overview part 2. Thank you guys very much for your patience for those of you that were waiting. Today we're going to go ahead and do kind of a breakdown, a ranking system, something new to the channel. We're going to go ahead and jump over to our range day. We went ahead and shot the M1A. We got some footage, got our first thoughts, and we pretty much give like a little bit of our initial feedback then. Then we're gonna go ahead and jump back here and then we'll go ahead and begin with the ranking. We'll see you guys in a bit. Firing it itself was very comfortable. We were very excited. Although almost immediately within the first magazine, we started noticing that my shots were off. Anytime we were aiming down sights, the point of impact was always about, depending on the distance that we're shooting at, whether it was like about 40 yards compared to about like 80 or 90 yards, we were hitting about a foot or so above our target, and we would have to, I guess, adjust our aim a foot below the target in order to hit it. And that the M1A isn't as tight as other battle rifles. Now, given all that said, that's just like our initial thoughts after putting a couple mags down range. Thank you, future Mr. Continental. Now we're going to check out the target. Now, with all these tests, of course, you always have the possibility that, you know, I'm a terrible shooter. I don't think so, just between you and me. But yeah, so of course you always have user error. We were shooting at about 30 Mr. Continental yards. We didn't have, you know, our rangefinder. Don't pay attention to the Reeky Deek target. We did have a pretty good fist-sized grouping right here. Initial thoughts is that it's very fun to shoot. It does have a bit of a recoil, but of course you just have to come to expect that when you're shooting around like 308. Follow-up shots are a bit difficult, although of course you can train around it. I didn't mess with the sights at all. All of my shots, whether it was the 30 Continental yard target, the 50 Continental yard target, or up to like the 80-90 Continental yard target, or they were all hitting very low. And I of course had to adjust for that in my shots. When I was hitting the first pin, which is about, I don't know, give it take 40, 45-ish yards away, I noticed that all my shots are going well over the pin, well over the target. I know I'm not, you know, the best shooter out here in the desert, or, you know, out here on the YouTubes, but I do know how to hit my shots. All my shots were hitting about 1 foot to as far as 2 to 3 feet below where I was aiming, the point of impact between the first and second pin. Honestly, quite concerning to me. I really didn't come out here to bash the M1A, and I still don't want to bash the M1A. It's a beautiful rifle. If you guys saw part 1, I kind of say that quite a bit, and I'm still saying that now. And it's very robust, well built. Just feels like an absolute tank. It's an absolute unit of a rifle. I'm just a little puzzled to why, you know, all my shots were hitting like a foot, 2 feet low. I know everyone has their own experiences. There's a lot of videos where people have a good time shooting these rifles. So I'm just gonna say that I'm a sample size of 1. This is my experience. I'll go ahead and send it back to future Mr. Continental. So we're gonna go ahead and break down the ranking based off sights and attachments, price point, comfort, practicality, reload, and weight. And then of course we have our last one, performance. And we're just gonna have like an extra, like kind of extra credit category called cool factor, which of course most people, one way or another, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot, they do like buying guns for a cool factor. So we're just gonna go ahead and include that for some extra credit points. All right, so for sights and attachments. Now this is the M1A tanker. I've been seeing some comments in, you know, the part 1 where people keep calling it a SOCOM. This is a tanker, 16-inch barrel. It does not come with the match grade sights. So you do have like a larger rear peep sight, which is, you know, makes sense because the shorter barrel, it's kind of, the idea is that you would be able to use it comfortably at, you know, within mid-range to closer distances. So that's why it's not a match grade sight system. Now, the sights do feel very nice to aim down. They feel very fun. Based off, as you guys can see from like earlier in the video when we went out to the range, our shots were off. And you know, that could be like a problem with my rifle. I know there have been other people that have like good experiences with the rifles, but we're talking about our review. Our sighting system was off. Now, the rifle was accurate because our groupings were consistent and they were accurate. So what that tells us is that there's nothing wrong with the rifle. There's nothing wrong with the rifling or the barrel or the precision or like, I guess, the overall accuracy of the rifle itself. But there is something wrong with our sighting system. As far as attachments, before anyone says anything, I am well aware that there are aftermarket attachments that you can put on your rifle, and even variations of this rifle, such as the SOCOM. They come with a Picatinny rail, or they come with like a mounting system over here, kind of closer to your receiver. I'm very well aware, especially the EBR, the cream of the crop. That is like a beautiful chassis that you can put all sorts of different attachments. Talking about this specific rifle that I'm holding, you don't have many options. In fact, you quite literally only have whatever your imagination can give you. You do have the option of putting on a aluminum or steel mounting sight right here for like a scope. If you wanted to, you can replace this kind of top cover and put a Picatinny rail. And then you could always, I guess, post clamp some kind of flashlight onto your barrel. Now, of course, that's gonna mess with the accuracy and all that. But as this stands, the rifle doesn't have many opportunities for attachments. So given all of that, we're going to rank it at a 3 out of 10 for sighting and attachments. Now, the way our sighting system, or the way our ranking system works, is that 0 being god awful and 10 being perfect, 5 being neutral, not good, not bad. So for this particular section, we're going to rate it a 3 out of 10. Now, moving on to price point. This rifle sits at about, it's going to cost you about $2,000. Now that is quite pricey, especially given some of the other rifles that are on the market, some of the different things that you can get for the same amount of money, especially when we're talking about like battle rifles. Of course, you can get the FAL, you can get an AR-10, especially for a lot less of a price. So given the price point, we're going to have to rank it at a 3 out of 10. It is a bit pricey, and depending on the package, the rifle that you're getting or the package deal that you're getting, unless you're a true M14 or an M1A fan, it's gonna seem a bit steep. Okay, for this next section, this next category, it's gonna be comfort, practicality, reload, and weight. We know that's like a lot of things, but they're all kind of within the same idea. So as far as the comfort of the rifle, aiming down sights, very comfortable. I got a solid cheek weld. While it is heavy, it does feel very balanced. I don't feel like off balance. I don't feel like one arm is getting more tired than the other. It feels like very natural. Their ergonomics of the rifle is very comfortable. As far as practicality, you are shooting a 308, so that's already gonna move you into a category of kind of like specializing your shooting style or even your fighting style, depending on what you're trying to use this for. So as far as practicality, of course, you're not gonna have the modularity of like a 5.56, but you should already know that going into a 308 or battle rifle platform. As far as reload, I have had quite of an easy time reloading it, especially with my time with my AK. Although first time users can find it a bit difficult at first, especially because it's like kind of like a rock and lock mechanism, and then you got like the AK kind of charging right here going on. Oh, shit. But even then, you can still mess it up, just as I did right there. I guess if I can go back a little bit, mention the practicality, is that your entire bolt right here is completely open. You would have to be aware of and to consider, and people have reviewed in the past, like especially like Grantham with like his mud test or his like ice test, is that this open bolt, if you get any sort of like grime, gunk, mud in it, it's just gonna stall the entire performance of the rifle, because like it's just gonna get jammed up. So that's something that you should consider for performance if you haven't yet considered it. This entire system is open, so if you're like in the trenches, good luck, buddy, you're screwed. Now, finally, weight. The overall, we'll go ahead and put the stats on screen, but the overall weight of the rifle, based off of feeling, I'm not a very large dude. I'm not a very small dude either. So based off my experience with this rifle, as I said earlier in this category, is that it is comfortable. You can hold it, all day at the range. Although if you did have to like go rucking with it, hiking with it, or if you had to carry it for a long period of time, you will definitely start to feel fatigue. So that being said, everything encompassing of this category, it's not terrible, it's not great. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a 5 out of 10. Talk about performance. It is a bit difficult for us to talk about performance because we were not able to get like hundreds of rounds down the range, not to mention the sighting system, the sighting issue that we were having, where we weren't able to properly shoot our targets the way that we wanted because it was like shooting too high or not shooting exactly where we wanted. We're gonna have to put a pin on this section for performance. It could go up, it could go down, but based off our experience with the rifle and how the sighting was messed up, we can't give it at least an honest ranking of what we see. Of course, there's a lot of resources and people online that talk about it and they have good experiences, or they talk about how the M1A isn't as tight. So that being said, we're going to rank it at a 5 out of 10, just a neutral 5 out of 10. And finally, the smallest but not the most forgotten section, the one that maybe we've all been looking for, is the cool factor. So the cool factor, we're going to go ahead and give it a max of 5 points overall. But for this specific rifle, it is quite cool, although it's not as unique as some of the other rifles that are out there. And for this specific rifle, we're going to go ahead and give it, we're going to give it 2 extra credit points. Of course, you can't subtract from the overall value of the cool factor category. Why 2 extra credit points? Because it's a lot more unique than they are an AK. Although they are quite common, you're going to eventually run into them at the range. She does have a special place in my heart because of the M14 gang in Call of Duty Zombies. If you know, you know. So overall, our ranking system is going to be an 18 out of 40 for this specific rifle. And adjusted for inflation and the wacky economy, we're going to get an overall ranking of 4.5 out of 10. Hope all that math makes sense for you guys, but I know you guys are smart, so. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Hope we covered everything, and hope we don't leave you with many questions in the comments. But if you guys do have any questions, or if there's something that we missed, maybe you guys have something that something you want to ask us, go ahead and drop in the comment. We love hearing from you guys. Really appreciate you guys, and thank you very much for waiting for part 2. This is Mr. Continental, and this is a Springfield M1A tanker. Thank you.